Welcome into the Pegasus Podcast. Welcome back, everybody. You have not heard from us since UCF's shocking loss to Florida and our late night pod, and now we are back to talk about a loss. I don't think I can call them shocking anymore because they just keep happening, but we are back for the second time in our podcast history. We had to miss a week just with the hurricane coming through and everything. Bailey and I both had to get stuff ready, and obviously Bailey's in Tampa, so that was a whole thing. If you're listening to this, I hope you're safe and I hope you're well following the hurricane, you and your property and your family. The bad news, other than UCF losing, is that Bailey will not be with us tonight. He's totally fine, but he's got some issues going on in Tampa. His apartment still doesn't have power. He had some family that had some damage, so he's been focusing on that today. But the good news is that I am joined by none other than Brian Peterson from Sons of UCF. Welcome, Brian.
I wish I could say I was happy to be here. I wish the circumstances were better. Obviously, our thoughts go out to everyone that's been affected by this hurricane. And that's why, obviously, I'm filling in for Bailey. And I wish it was coming on the heels of a more brightening outcome to a game. But I'm sure we'll get into that here in a moment.
Yeah, I feel like so you're basically our official Bailey pinch hitter at this point. But our last game we had you on for, if I remember right, was Houston, which was a bowl eligibility clinching win. So
It
slightly, I
was.
hope you're ready for slightly different vibes
Yeah.
on this
Well, I'm sure
podcast.
we'll get into bowl eligibility too.
We'll get into it. I don't know if UCF will, but yeah, UCF, if you're listening, you know what happened. UCF played Cincinnati at home. They lost 19-13. They played two different quarterbacks, neither of whom were KJ Jefferson. So I don't know. Where are you at mentally with this season and this team after this is three straight losses? We had the losing streak last season and we're just kind of back here now.
Yeah, I mean this is pretty much on par for what we've expected out of this team so far, and it's just another. I don't want to call it Gus performance, but that's pretty much what it is. That's where we're at, and so far in this season, it's. I was trying to think and put my thoughts together before we started the podcast, but I mean we were favored at home. I mean, sure, that's at home with an asterisk next to it because the crowd wasn't quite there, although they were loud on TV.
It was a good
Let me be
crowd.
very clear. Yeah.
Not as bad as I was expecting with the storm.
Yeah, for a hurricane having just come through here, the crowd was very loud and rambunctious. But again, questionable offense, questionable clock management by the coaching staff, and just another heartbreaking loss that came down to fourth quarter miscues, if you want to call them that. So is the season over? Probably. I was convinced that the season was over after the Florida game last week. We just felt like we have no identity on offense. The defense is trying to put it together, but maybe they lack some of the talent there. They just haven't been able to get off the field in key moments. It's a down year for sure.
Yeah. And lack of talent to me is kind of the story. I don't know. It's just I feel like we've unfortunately did the thing a couple off seasons in a row now where we got really hyped up on a lot of transfers they brought in and maybe thought this team was better than it was. But for all the stuff you can throw at the wall, for all the quarterback stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute, I just at the end of the day, we've seen them against TCU, we've seen them against Colorado, against Florida, against Cincinnati. I just don't think this team is very good. And I don't know what as a coaching staff. Now there have been coaching mistakes. The clock management. I don't know why this is something that we're still talking about, that they actually just straight up can't manage a clock. But coaching mistakes aside, it just feels like this team just isn't very good. And I don't know what you're supposed to do when you have a team that just isn't very good and has a very tough schedule.
It feels like they can be good, and that's why I kind of keep getting sucked back into these games. I'm usually very stressed before UCF plays a game. I pace a lot during the game. I'm very nervous. But prior to this game starting, I was like, this is great. It's going to be just a fun game to watch. We'll see what UCF can put on the field. And then UCF hooked me back in because they said, oh, we've got a new quarterback starting. And I was reeled right back in. Oh, here we go. This is going to be special. This is going to be amazing. And we didn't even get to see much of EJ Coulson, the freshman that was highly recruited coming out of high school, who started early, the youngest freshman to start for UCF at quarterback. He got a few drives, and UCF did what they always do. Ja'Cory Brown, of course, looked good, but the offense sputtered. The theme that we've seen all season long is UCF driving into the red zone and then failing to come away with points. We just don't have an identity.
And it turns out that transcends quarterbacks, as we learned in real time tonight. But
of course.
Yeah, just you said he's the youngest quarterback to start ever for UCF. Stephen Leonard pointed out he's actually the second youngest quarterback to start, period, in the history of college football,
Oh, wow.
which was a decision. So yeah, I mean, the backstory for that was that started leaking a little bit like I don't know. It felt like there were some murmurs of that maybe yesterday, and then by this morning, it felt like half the fan base knew that EJ Coulson was going to start. And then, sure enough, he starts. If you didn't know who EJ Coulson was before today, highly rated recruit. It was a big deal they got him, but he did reclassify. He was supposed to be in the class of 2025, this upcoming class. He should be. He's like 6 months away from his prom right now, and
Yeah.
it was cool to get him because he was fielding interest from some big time programs, and it was great that they could stop recruiting him and let him develop for a year or two before they'd ever need him. I don't fully know the behind the scenes, just leveling with you and our listeners. I don't know the behind the scenes of how he went from we'll develop him for a couple years to he's now starting. We heard that he'd been playing more in practice and looking really good. Gus said that he'd had a really good few weeks, but I I guess it's easy to sit here and say, yeah, it didn't work after it didn't work, but rolling with a 17-year-old at the power level who shouldn't even be in college right now was a weird decision to me. And then they switched to Jacurri, which they had said was always the plan that he would play as well. And I mean, man, from the first time Jacurri was on the field, it felt to me like, oh, okay, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy who should be playing among the three quarterbacks we've seen this year. I don't know how you felt about that.
I mean, you bring up a good point, and I saw a lot of people on social media saying that EJ had been benched, and that was not the impression that I got. Much like you just alluded to, I also heard that the plan was, and Mark Daniels has said this during the pregame radio show as well, that the coaching staff had planned to play both quarterbacks in this game. So I don't think that EJ was benched in favor of Jacurri Brown. Perhaps they saw that Jacurri was playing and had a hotter hand, and they just rolled with him just to give some consistency to the offense. Obviously, we saw flashes of who Jacurri Brown could be this season, which leads me to my question, which is now that we have seen this out of him, why have we been playing KJ all season long? I mean, we have seen 5 games into the season what we get with KJ. He certainly isn't the guy that we all thought he was going to be. And Jacurri comes out and he starts slinging it. And he's certainly a better runner. He runs with more purpose. He's got more speed than KJ does. So I think you're right. I think that we have found a quarterback who's going to be serviceable for UCF moving forward. I'm not sure that that says much for the remainder of the season. It's like you said, it feels like the season is kind of over. I mean, we're 6 games into the season and we just now found a quarterback who's serviceable. That's not really what you want to hear as a team halfway through the season.
6 games into the season, you find a quarterback who's serviceable. He's not even the quarterback you benched your starter for. He's just
Right.
another guy you found. And we'll move on to Jacurri here. I don't want to totally discard AJ. To be clear, I think he has a super bright future for UCF. It's still a huge deal they have him. He didn't get benched. They let them both get out there, and they rode with the hot hand. EJ also kind of got a tough break where we didn't get to see much of him because 2 of his drives ended in Johnny Richardson fumbles, which
Oh my gosh, Johnny.
that felt like the end of Johnny Richardson's time on the field for UCF
He's been
in a lot
known
of
to do
ways.
that. He's a speedster. We love Johnny, but yeah, a rough start for him.
It was quite literally back-to-back plays for him. So that's super, super unfortunate. And yeah, but so we see Jacurri. I have a lot of the same questions you do I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the camp of, I'm not here saying I can't believe Gus ever started KJ because when they landed KJ, I was ecstatic. I couldn't
Everybody
believe it.
was.
They got this guy who's been in the SEC for years playing at a high level, throwing for 8,000 yards, and he's a Gus style quarterback. And it just didn't work here. And you never know what they look like in practice. Mackenzie Milton back in the day, not the Storm. Now I have to preface that. Mackenzie Milton, the quarterback back in the day, was notorious for he never looked good in practice. He just didn't practice very well. Then he gets in the game. He's the best player in program history. But man, you covered it. Jacurri did everything a lot better. He ran the ball better. He was calmer. He threw the ball downfield better. And I don't know. This season feels shot, to be honest. But is there any sense of just, well, at least now we're not watching a 5th-year senior quarterback who's not even from here fail. We're watching a quarterback who might be the guy next year, maybe learn and improve in real time. I don't know.
It's tough to say because with the transfer portal, I mean, I know that Jacurri's already transferred once. He did come from Miami. For those of you that don't know, you just never know what your team is going to look like next season, right? And I believe that was the whole idea of putting EJ in the game was let's get him some reps. You know, he is kind of the future as the coaching staff sees it. Like you said, he's a highly touted recruit. Curry, how many years of eligibility does he have left?
So he's a redshirt sophomore, so it should be
Redshirt
2 more
sophomore.
2 more years
Okay.
after this.
So he's got some eligibility left in him. And it makes you wonder what we're going to get out of him in the future, right? With NLI or NIL today, you just don't know what you're going to get. With the transfer portal, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what next year is going to bring. So who knows at this point? I mean, it's a loss.
And I do think I'm in the boat of it. What the transfer portal needs to start bringing to UCF is maybe a little bit less. I feel like I don't know that this is maybe not the forum or the podcast for this debate, but I don't know. Every time we see young guys get out there that weren't playing because they brought in transfers, they do well. Chasen Johnson played well. Isaiah Nixon had a sack. Like these guys who just were not getting out there because they brought in guys from the portal are playing well. And
Yeah.
I actually went back and I checked the snap count against Florida. How many guys? We'll play a game, and maybe you'll make me look bad by actually underguessing. But how many guys from UCF's last two recruiting classes do you think got on the field against Florida?
7.
Five guys.
Okay.
Five guys, not the restaurant. Five total players, and two of them played minimal reps. Just got in there
And
for a few plays.
and it was more during the Florida game than it had been up until that point, I believe.
Yes, that was a game where they were saying, "Look, we'll finally let some of them play." So
Yeah.
it's hard to talk about the Malzahn era and say, "Well, they're recruiting so well" when they don't play the recruits. So it's tough. I feel like Jacuri is the guy who can go for a quarterback, but part of the issue is we've talked a lot about KJ, and he had to go and all that, and I understand that. I don't disagree that it was time for a change, but it's not like we can act like KJ Jefferson was the only problem with this team. He didn't play today and he still lost. Are we at least seeing something better from the defense? It felt like this was maybe the defense's best performance of the season.
Well, you were at the post-game presser, right? And you heard from some of the players on defense, and they felt like it was their best performance of the season so far. It certainly felt like they were playing better as a defensive unit. However, we could not get off the field on third down yet again. Cincinnati had their way with us. I mean, I said at one point we should just give them any third down, let them convert it to save the time for us on the clock to try and make a comeback because we could not stop them. Their offense, their quarterback was just shredding us over the middle, which is something we've seen all season long. TCU did it to us, Florida did it to us, and now Cincinnati's done it to us as well. So I don't know that the defense is necessarily any more improved. It may have felt that way, but again, we lost. I don't know if you put that up to the defense or if you put it up to the fact that the offense could only muster 13 points under Gus Malzahn, who's supposed to be an offensive guru. Who brought in this quarterback who was, from the SEC and was supposed to do big things here at UCF. And yet we find ourselves only mustering 13 points at home. It's just mind-boggling. And I think that's not on the players. That is 100% on the coaches.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that what's frustrating me, and it's why this is starting to feel like Gus was asked in the presser, he said in the last two pressers, he said after the Colorado loss and after the Florida loss, our goals are still intact, was the quote. Particularly bothered me after the Florida loss because it was beating Florida, not like one of the primary goals of this entire program was to show they could beat Florida. But whatever, that aside, he was asked in the presser tonight, do you still feel like all of your goals are in front of you? And he said yes. Gus said that their goals are still in front of them because the Big 12 has a lot of parity and because there are upsets and it's a tight league that they can somehow climb out of this 1-2 hole. And I don't know what, go to the Big 12 title game. I don't know.
I mean, I guess never say never, but no, I mean,
I'll say never. I will flat out say never.
It's not going to happen. Yes, there's a lot of parity in the Big 12. If you told me to pick two teams that were going to make it to the Big 12 championship game right now, I could point it to and say maybe these two, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. It's not like there's two teams that are far, better than the other teams out there, but it's certainly not UCF. We'll be lucky if we're bowl eligible at this point.
Honestly, all right, call it right now. Is UCF going to a bowl this year?
No.
I don't think so either. Where are 3 wins? I was saying this last week, and this honestly, any path after last week, he could have found 3 wins, kind of included Cincinnati, which is now off the table.
Yeah, it absolutely did.
There's no way around the fact that this game right now against Cincinnati was a loss, and yet it was also the first game against a power team this season where they were competitive for 4 quarters. That's how low the bar is, and they still lost the game even then.
It's mind-boggling that we've come to this point. And we were supposed to be better this year in our second year in the Big 12 than we were in our first year. And now it's very likely that we won't make a bowl game in our second year, whereas we somehow managed to inch our way into a bowl game last season. But yeah, not a good position. Fans are not happy. I am not happy. I mean, I feel like the season is over. The good news for me is that I don't have to be stressed the rest of the season anymore now.
It's all gravy now. Who cares?
It's all exhibition at this point.
We're also pretty much done. We've already gone through and lost all the teams that we hate anyway, like Cincinnati's beating UCF, Florida's beating UCF. Like, I don't think there's anyone the rest of the way that it's like, we have real beef with their fan bases anyway. So it's not like there's more insult to injury coming down the pipeline.
The only thing that we could screw up at this point is losing a space game.
Ugh. Yeah, I hadn't actually thought about that tonight. You're right. That would be, we're really testing the space game magic. I thought we were testing it last year, and this is to a new level.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't even want to think about that right now. They're
I mean,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
see us winning homecoming against BYU.
BYU's looking like a top 15, top 10 team in the country right
I
now.
mean,
That
they
was
are,
supposed to
right?
be
They're ranked 14th, aren't
ranked
they?
14th, and I believe they beat Arizona tonight. I'm going to double
Yeah.
check that real quick. But yeah, so that's your two, the three games that I thought were like their easy games at the start. Yeah, BYU beat Arizona 41-19. So get ready to learn BYU on homecoming, everybody. But the three games I've had pegged on the schedule of those will be your easy wins.
Yeah. I
Were
mean, we're not so
Cincinnati, BYU, Arizona State. They just lost to Cincinnati. BYU's looking like a top 10 team. Arizona State is, I believe, 4-1 or 5-1 now. Just beat Utah and looking very good. So
yep.
I don't know where the wins are coming from.
Beat up on the Utah team that everybody said was going to finish first in the Big 12.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, and we go on the road next week to Iowa State. They're looking like a very good team. We're not going to be able to stop their offense. And we'll see how Chikuri, I assume he gets to start next week, is able to take the reins of the offense, but he'll be playing in an environment that's going to be tough to play in. So you assume that UCF's going to struggle in that game, perhaps. I just don't see 3 wins on the road or on the season here. I don't see where you get them.
I just can't believe we're here. I can't believe we're here. We're talking about Iowa State, which I feel like I was calling that out as a loss in January. So nothing nothing I've seen on the field this season has changed that opinion. Then BYU, you drop both of those, you are once again on a 5-game losing streak, just like last year. That horrible losing streak that it was moving up, it was a struggle. They'll never deal with that again. You're right back there, and I want to give you a platform, Brian, because Bailey and I, obviously, for this podcast going forward in the coming weeks and months, will be closely monitoring the Gus Malzahn era at UCF and what the hell is happening next. But I just want to ask you straight up, where are you at on Gus Malzahn right now? Where are you at on this?
I'm out on the Gus bus. No, I've tried to I tried to be a good fan and hang in there for as long as I could. The guy recruits really well. He speaks to the media very well, but he can't do it anymore. He's not a guy that should be wearing the headset, calling plays, running the offense. I think that's blatantly obvious at this point. I gave him his last chance in my mind at the Florida game. Even after losing to Colorado at home, which Colorado seems to be a better team than we thought they were going to be. Losing to Colorado was one thing, but I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt if he could go into the swamp and walk away with a win, especially knowing all of the things he had said about the importance of UCF beating Florida for recruiting and, the future of the program. If he had pulled out that win, we might have been having a different discussion right now. But I am 100% out on the Gus bus. I think it's time to make a change. Unfortunately, as you've alluded to several times, we simply do not have the money to buy out his contract. I think it's close to $12 million for us to buy out and fire Coach Malzahn at this point. So I don't know that we're going to see a change in the coaching staff anytime soon. But yeah, I mean, it's just been one nightmare after another, right? We've seen that he brought in KJ, that was a flop. He brought in Ted Roof as our defensive coordinator this year. That was a total flop so far. Questionable. I mean, how many years has he been coaching college football now? And again, we have seen time and time in this game, the prior games all season long, these clock management issues that are something that a senior veteran head coach should not be struggling with, let alone putting up 13 points on the field at home against a questionable Cincinnati team. So I think the Gus Bus experiment is over. I don't know if that changes anytime soon for UCF, though.
Yeah. Veteran coaching decisions like starting a 17-year-old quarterback who should be in high school and then realizing after 3 drives, actually, we should start this other guy who's clearly better. But I'm kind of with you on the Gus. I'm not kind of with you. I am with you on the Gus era. And I don't even like saying that out loud because this is a weird situation where an era of a coach feels largely over for a school and there's not really anything the school can do to move on. And frankly, if you lie detector tested Terry Mohajir right now, I'm not sure Terry Mohajir would say, yeah, I'm ready to be done with him, which is its own can of worms. Yeah. Yeah. And for me, the issues with Gus, it's really 2 things that finally sent me over the edge. The first was this past offseason where they had what I found to be an acceptable 2023 season, where it was a huge transition. They were the best of the transitioning teams. They went to a bowl. They went 6-7. I thought they signed their best recruiting class ever. I thought they were on a good trajectory. He made the decision to make dramatic changes. He brought in 2 new coordinators. He brought a new strength coach. He really was like, we're tearing this up and we're doing it differently, and was very open about that. You did all those things. You did the big blow up last offseason, and nothing's gotten better. So my question there is, what exactly are you going to say this offseason to convince fans to stick around? That was the first thing. The second thing, and this is the most worrying one to me, is that Gus Malzahn has clearly been caught off guard by the state of this team. I think he genuinely believes they had assembled a Big 12 title contender. And I can see thinking you assembled a Big 12 title contender, and it turns out you had an 8-win team. I can't see looking at your roster and believing it is a roster that can win a Power 4 conference, and in reality, it is not a bowl team. That signals so many concerns to me about the vision, the evaluation, the process, that I'm having a really hard time getting past that.
You know, it's funny you say that, because my thought process is, with Gus as our head coach, I could 100% see a situation where going into Iowa State next week, he rolls KJ Jefferson out as our starting quarterback again.
Could you imagine?
that is the type of coach that he is, right? Head scratching decisions all season long. Oh, you know what? We tried something different. We tried to start the freshman. We put Chakuri in. We didn't get the win at home. Let's go back to what we know.
Yeah. Yeah. And this game, it was such a surreal first half, because I'm watching these two things play out in this actual college football game, a Big 12 conference game being played. I'm watching Cincinnati, who is trying to win the game because they're in season, got to beat this team, kind of our rival. Let's win it. And I'm watching UCF, who is in a real game, going, I guess we can try this guy. Like, let's see how this guy got. Like, I was watching them just kind of experiment in real time, and then we wonder why they didn't win the game. And I don't know. Listen, I get it's bad business as a podcaster to say there's no hope, it's all over, but I don't see a map to the season getting turned around, because for all the quarterback stuff, even if they have figured out quarterback, and like I said, I like Ja'Cory Brown a lot. He had a really good night, and I think that he can be the guy for them for the rest of this season. I think if he improves, he can be the guy for the next couple seasons. But there is so much more wrong with this roster than the quarterback, and I don't think there are some things they can go into the lab and fix or do differently in practice that is going to turn this into a team that's competitive in this conference. I'm just not seeing it.
You're not going to see it 6 games into the season. I mean,
right.
We're half with the season is 50% over at this point. And if you're still trying to make those adjustments, I mean, that's a recipe for disaster right there, right? Which is what we've seen all season long. It felt like the season was over last week. It really feels like the season is over this week. So at this point, you know, if I'm the coaching staff, I'm putting in more of these guys who are younger, getting them some reps, getting them some time, you know, on the field. 1, so they don't transfer during the offseason, and 2, so that we can try and build off of the success that we've had getting these guys into the program. Let's get them on the field. Let's start getting them warmed up for next season.
Yeah.
Perhaps Gus doesn't plan on being here next season. Maybe, you know what, if this season turns out to be a complete dud, he decides to hang it up and go home and retire and, you know, walk away with millions of dollars in his pocket. He's already set for life. You know, he's made his money. It kind of felt like that at the start of the season, right? I think you and Bailey had mentioned at one point that you could see that, you know, this might be his last season because he might decide to walk away. Or maybe maybe he takes one more stab at the SEC, or, you know, finds that Arkansas job or something like that. I don't see that happening anytime soon now.
I don't think job offers are coming for him at this point.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe he decides to hang it up at the end of the season. You know, it's just a new world with NIL and the transfer portal, and, you know, the game has kind of left him behind, perhaps. Who knows? But it's certainly not going to be the season that we all thought it might be at the start of the season.
Yeah, it's going to get rough, guys, so buckle up. I actually seriously think the best we can hope for is just pulling another Oklahoma State somewhere, getting a top 15 win that we can talk about, and everyone will forget after an hour, but whatever. One more thing before we get out of here. Not because this has been so fun, and I'm sure you are all loving to relive this game.
I'm having a blast.
Oh, now you're going to really have a blast. There's one more topic that, because you are here of all people, we have to touch on. I believe that your brand to the UCF community would largely be the biggest fan of the color gold who has ever existed on this earth. Brian, do you want to give me your thoughts on the combo for tonight?
The combo was fantastic. Okay. I mean, there's a lot of confusion about some of my takes on uniforms as of late, and I'll clear that up right now. Okay. Love are uniform combos. However, asterisk, they've become stale. All we do is wear black jerseys or white jerseys with black helmets or white helmets. There is no variety. We haven't seen light mode. We haven't seen night mode. We haven't seen gold lids or gold pants. We probably don't even have those gold pants anymore, but still, give me something. I need something. Our colors are black and gold, not black and white. I'm wearing black and white because that's all we seem to wear anymore. And it feels like the equipment team just kind of phoned it in for this military appreciation game that we had today. Sure, everything was last minute. I mean, I love the sticker on the back of the helmet, the decal, and we had a little bit of the gold chrome on the helmet, but that's not enough. All right. If we're rocking the uniforms that we were rocking today, once a season, I'm all for it. They look great. But we need some variety, and I'm blaming this on Terry for getting rid of pewter and anthracite. Bring these things back. The fans want them. I'll get off my soapbox.
I think you should stay up there. I'm with you in large part. Maybe not quite to the degrees on some of your gold takes, but my thing with the combos for the season is each combo individually on its own has been really good. There's nothing they've worn where I've said, hey, that's bad. It's the back to back to back of them without night mode, without gold helmets that I agree with. And listen, like some of them have been really cool. That I'm forgetting the name of the opponent. What was the first game of the season? Help me out. I'm totally blanking. New Hampshire?
New Hampshire, yes.
Those New Hampshire and Sam Houston games are entirely interchangeable in my brain. I know they both happened, couldn't tell you the order. The New Hampshire combo, blackout with the white face mask and the white script knights, that's epic. That's incredible. That is an awesome uniform.
The white face mask was a great touch on that.
Awesome. I can't get past black helmets, black jerseys, and white pants with a white stack UCF for Colorado. I just can't get past that.
We surrendered gold to them.
And that was what all offseason I said you can't do. You have to flex black and gold. You got to go gold helmet, go night mode, go something. Not that. But
I really expected us to go night mode for that game.
I think I predicted that in like May. Like I thought that was the layup combo. I thought you'd go gold helmets, night mode jerseys, and that'd be the play. But we got something else. And
the Florida game, I can understand. You wanted to, wear the same color combination that you did in the Gasparilla Bowl. 100%. I'll allow that.
Not mad about the Florida combo, but no. I do think the time for gold helmets is upon us. We'll see what they do for Iowa State. The team might not get better, but the combos might. We'll see if we see some gold as the season goes on.
If you want my conspiracy theory, I don't even know if we have gold helmets in the locker rooms right now. I mean, this could be one of those situations where we don't have the supply like we did a couple of years ago. I don't know. Now, there has to be a reason for that, right?
Tinfoil hat. I don't know if that's true. It could be. They've had supply chain issues. You all know if you listen to this, that's happened. We had when the Kingdom guy who got to pick a combo was picking his combo, they posted a photo of him and they were presenting him with a gold helmet, which implied that they believed they were going to have them. And let's not forget that the equipment account lets fans vote on a throwback decal for a helmet, and that was also on a gold helmet.
That's true.
We will see. I actually kind of hope it's supply chain because I can forgive that more than just choosing not to. But I'm not sure.
We may get to see that for homecoming, that throwback.
Was that the game that it was for?
I thought it was. I completely blanked on that until you just brought it up now. I remember that voting now. And I think it was supposed to be for a throwback game. I guess people were assuming it was for homecoming.
Which decal for homecoming?
Okay.
And it was the gold helmet. And it was either the script knights, which what the hell, guys? The stack UCF or the throwback, the UCF logo from my childhood, the Lance logo, which won the vote by a lot. Lance
logo, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So listen, if they come out in that game and it's not gold helmets, then yeah, I think we'll know what happened.
Yeah. I'm hoping that there's some reason that we haven't seen it so far. And there's still a chance we could see light mode. I mean, we still have to have those laying around. Maybe we see those, against Iowa State next week or something. And this is I meant to ask you this earlier. I'll ask you now since we're on the show. How many did UCF not sign a new agreement with Nike last year? But when did the new agreement take effect? 2026, I thought.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect, I don't think from what I remember was reported at the time, I think this was more just a continuation of the existing deal. I don't think there's going to be some big
Did we
change.
not sign was it 23, 24? There was a stopgap where we had agreed for 2 additional years. And perhaps we're just kind of getting through those 2 years before this new contract takes place.
I'm doing this off the top of my head, so sorry if I'm wrong. I believe UCF signed a stopgap during COVID. And I do believe they've signed a long-term Nike deal since then. I seem to remember that being reported.
I
If I'm
wonder
wrong, I
if
apologize.
I wonder if the new contract takes place starting in say 2025, and perhaps we'll see more variety out of our Nike equipment at that point.
Yeah, they're signed with Nike through 2029. So, like I said, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily expect like giant changes whenever the deal rolls over. But listen, the other thing I got to say about UCF's uniforms really quickly, and then we've lost all of you. None of you are still here, so now we're just talking for us, and I think
Yeah.
that's great. But for the combo stuff, I agree with you. I do have to say that I think we are living in the best helmet era ever for UCF by
Oh
far, and
yeah.
I try to count that. This new gold is, which we haven't seen this year, is excellent.
If we see it, right? Yeah.
I never even
No,
had a problem with the old gold, and this one is so much better.
we didn't know that we needed these new gold helmets until we got them.
Exactly right. And the new black, which is, I never even realized the old ones weren't fully black until they got these dark black helmets. Mixing in the white face mask on combos, which we only ever saw black face mask. I like, if we're just looking at helmets, best year ever. It's just time to,
The
as I'm
only
sure
way
you
it
agree,
gets
get the
better
gold
is
going.
the only way it gets better is if you bring a pewter helmet back.
Bring pewter back. Terry Mahadra, I'm sure you're listening.
I'm sure
Let's bring back the pewter helmet.
That's how bad the season has gotten, you guys. We are sitting here talking about the potential of bringing pewter helmets back to bring some joy back into our lives. That is UCF football.
That's a tweet right there that I'd love for you to send. It's like at Terry Mahadra. You may not be able to deliver us a winning football team, but you can deliver us pewter helmets. So just let's get going. Well, this was fun. The game was not. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks, Brian, for filling in for Bailey. Bailey and I will be back with our normal podcast this week where we will, I guess, preview the Iowa State game for some
Best
reason.
of luck with that one.
Should be fun. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next week.